The 1994 Winter Olympics, officially known as the XVII Olympic Winter Games, was a winter multi-sport event celebrated from 12 to February 27, 1994 in and around Lillehammer, Norway. Lillehammer failed to win the bid for the 1992 event. Lillehammer was awarded the 1994 Winter Olympics in 1988, after beating Anchorage, United States, Östersund, Sweden, and Sofia, Bulgaria. Lillehammer is the northernmost city to ever host the Winter Games. The Games were the first to be held in a different year from the Summer Olympics, the first and only one to be held 2 years after the previous Winter Games, and the most recent to be held in a small town. The Games were the second winter event hosted in Norway, after the 1952 Winter Olympics in Oslo, and the fourth Olympics in the Nordic countries, after the 1912 Summer Olympics in Stockholm, Sweden, and the 1952 Summer Olympics in Helsinki, Finland. While many events took place in Lillehammer, skating took place in Hamar, some ice hockey matches were placed in Kjavik, while alpine skiing was held in Øya and Ringebu. 67 countries and 1,737 athletes participated in 6 sports and 61 events. 14 countries made their debut in the Winter Olympics, of which 9 were former Soviet republics. The Games also saw the introduction of stricter qualifying rules, reducing the number of underperforming participants from warm weather countries. New events were 2 new distances in short track speed skating and aerials, while speed skating was moved indoors. Nearly 2 million people spectated the Games, which were the first to have the Olympic truce in effect. The Games were succeeded by the 1994 Winter Paralympics from 10 to March 19. Manuela De Center and Lyubov Yegorova dominated women's cross-country skiing, taking 5 and 4 medals, respectively. A crowd of over 100,000 saw Italy beat Norway by 0.4 seconds on the men's 4x 10 km relay. Vreni Schneider won a complete set of medals in alpine skiing, while Norway took a medal sweep in the men's combined. Nancy Kerrigan had, before the Games, been clubbed by Tonya Harding's associate, but managed to take silver in ladies' singles. Johan Olaf Koss won 3 speed skating events, while 13-year-old Kim Yoon-mi became the youngest ever Olympic gold medalist. Sweden beat Canada in a dramatic penalty shootout in the ice hockey final. With 11 gold medals, Russia won the most events, while with 26, Norway collected the most medals overall. Host city selection. Planning of the Lillehammer bid started in 1981, following Falun, Sweden's failed bid for the 1988 Winter Olympics. It was supported by the government largely to help stimulate the economy of the inland counties. Lillehammer originally bid for the 1992 Games, but came fourth in the voting. In 1986, the International Olympic Committee voted to separate the Summer and Winter Games, which had been held in the same year since the latter's inception in 1924, and arranged them in alternating even-numbered years. A new bid was launched for the 1994 Games, modified with an indoor speed skating venue and an additional ice hall in Lillehammer. Additional government guarantees were secured. 3 other locations bid for the Games: Östersund, Anchorage, and Sofia. The 94th IOC session, held in Seoul on September 15, 1988, voted Lillehammer the host for the Games. The Lillehammer Olympics were the last Winter Games to date to be held in a town, rather than be centered in a city. Organization. 1.21 million tickets were sold for the Games. LOOC estimated that an additional 500,000 viewed the Games for free along the courses. In addition, 180,000 seats were used by the media and VIPs. The overall responsibility for the Games was held by the Lillehammer Olympic Organizing Committee, which was created on November 14, 1988 and led by Gerard Heiberg. It was reorganized several times with various subsidiaries, but from 1993 consisted of a single company owned 51% of Lillehammer municipality, 24.5% by the Government of Norway and 24.5% by the Norwegian Olympic Committee. The government had issued a guarantee for the Games, and also covered the expenses related to infrastructure. The total costs of the Games was 7.4 billion Norwegian krone, of which 0.95 billion Norwegian krone was expenditure by the ministries, 4.48 billion Norwegian krone was for operations and event expenses, and 1.67 billion Norwegian krone was for investments. The Games had a revenue of 2.71 billion Norwegian krone, of which 1.43 billion Norwegian krone was from television rights, 0.65 billion Norwegian krone was from sponsors, and 0.15 billion Norwegian krone was from ticket sales. Production of the broadcasting, which costs 462 million Norwegian krone, was the responsibility of the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation, with assistance from the CTV television network and the European Broadcasting Union. NRK had 1,424 people working at the Olympics, while international broadcasters sent an additional 4,050 accredited broadcasting personnel. The transmission rights for the Games were held by EBU in Europe, CBS in the United States, NHK in Japan, CTV in Canada, the Asia-Pacific Broadcasting Union, 9 Network in Australia, as well as other broadcasters in other countries. The total transmission rights price was $350 million United States dollars. In part because of the Hardanger-Kerrigan affair, the viewership in the United States is still the highest ever for Winter Olympics. 460 million Norwegian krone was used on information technology, with the main system running on an IBM AS/400. 3,500 terminals were in use during the game based on the Info 94 system. It was the first Olympics to have terminals installed abroad. Seiko delivered the timekeeping devices. Telecommunications were delivered by Norwegian Telecom, including signal transmission. This included a mobile radio network with 9 base stations. Events. There were 61 events contested in 6 sports. Opening ceremony. The opening ceremony was held at the ski jumping hill Luge. Artistic content was made to present a range of Norwegian culture, included Sami joik, telemark skiing, fiddlers and folk dancing, simulations of traditional weddings and their processions, and Veta from Norse mythology. After speeches by Heiberg and IOC President Juan Antonio Samaranch, the Games were officially declared opened by King Harald V. The Olympic flame was to be skied down the sky jump before lighting the cauldron. Originally this task had rested upon Ole Gunnar Fidesta L, but after he was injured in a practice jump, his backup Stein Gruben received the honor. The cauldron was lit by Crown Prince Haakon Magnus. The Olympic oaths were issued by Vegard Ulvang for the athletes and Kari Ring for the officials. Alpine skiing. Since the 1992 Games, the rules for combined changed, where the winner was determined by total time instead of points. The women's downhill was originally scheduled for Heal, but after protests it was moved to Kvartel, which also hosted the men's downhill and Super G. In the men's events, Germany's Marcus Wasmeri won 2 disciplines, giant slalom and Super G, finishing ahead of the United States' Tommy Moe on the Super G. Moe won the downhill ahead of Norway's Kjell Copyright Armote, who came in third in the Super G. Austria's Thomas Stangassinger won the slalom ahead of Italy's Alberto Tomba. In the combined, Norway took a medal sweep, with Luskjos winning ahead of Armote and Harald Christian Strand-Nielsen. In the women's events, Switzerland's Vreni Schneider was the most successful, winning the slalom, taking silver in combined and taking bronze in giant slalom. The only other athlete to take multiple medals was Italy's Isolde Kostner, who took a third place in both downhill and Super G. The downhill was won by Germany's Katja Ciesinger, Super G by the United States' Stein Roth, the giant slalom by Italy's Deborah Compagnoni, and the combined by Sweden's Pernilla Wiberg. Biathlon. Russia and Germany split all the individual men's medals. In the 10 km sprint, Russia's Sergei Chipikov won ahead of Rico Groh, both with a clean sheet. Bronze winner Sergei Tarasov won the 20 km individual ahead of Germany's Frank Luck and Sven Fischer. Germany easily revenged itself by winning the 7.5 km relay ahead of Russia and France. In the women's class, Canada's Miriam Bar Copyright won both the individual events, finishing ahead of Belarus' Svetlana Peremagina on the 7.5 km sprint and ahead of France's Anne Bryand on the 15 km individual. In the 7.5 km relay, the format since 1992 was changed from 3 to 4 participants. Russia, with a clean sheet, won ahead of Germany, who made 6 misses, with France taking the bronze. Bobsleigh. In two-man, Switzerland took the top 2 places, with Gustav Wedder, Donat Acklin winning 0.05 seconds ahead of Ritu Gar-Paragrafci and Guido Acklin, who were again 0.15 seconds ahead of Italy's Gar-1 quarter Nthea Huber and Stefano Ticci placing third. In four-man, Germany II, consisting of Harold Zudaj, Carsten Brunach, Olaf Ampel and Alexander Selig, finished 0.06 seconds ahead of Switzerland I and 0.23 ahead of Germany I. Cross-country skiing. Participants from 5 countries took all the medals of the 10 events. Starting in 1994, the Olympics alternated which of the medium-distance and long-distance races had classical and freestyle. Men's 10 km relay was watched by a crowd of nearly 150,000. Norway, Italy and Finland followed each other tightly for 3.5 rounds, with the second and third exchange of the 3 taking place within 1.1 seconds of each other. Finland fell behind in the end, and Norwegian Bjørn Dali and Italian Silvio Forner battled to the end, with Italy beating Norway by 0.4 seconds. Dali won the 10 km classical and 15 km pursuit, while taking silver in the 30 km freestyle. Kazakhstan's Vladimir Smirnov won the 50 km classical, in addition to silver in the 10 km and the 15 km. Norway's Thomas Ulskard won the 30 km, while Finland's Mika Currency took an individual silver and a bronze. Italy's Manuela Di Centa and Russia's Lyubov Yegorova dominated the women's events. They took 5 and 4 medals each, respectively, and between them winning all the races. Yegorova finished ahead of Di Centa on the 5 km classical and the 10 km pursuit, while Di Centa finished ahead of Yegorova on the 15 km freestyle, and also won the 30 km classical ahead of Norway's Marit Wold. Finland's Marja-Liisa Kurvsniemi took 2 bronze medals, in 5 km and 30 km. In the 5 km relay, Norway and Russia kept up with each other until the final stage, in which Anita Mon lost to Yegorova, with Italy finishing third. With Yegorova's 6th career gold, she was tied as the most winning Winter Olympic participant. Figure skating. On January 6, Tonya Harding's ex-husband Jeff Gillily conspired with Shane Stunt to club fellow female figure skater Nancy Kerrigan in the knee. Both Harding and Kerrigan were selected for the Olympic team. After Harding admitted to helping to cover up the attack, the United States Olympic Committee initiated proceedings to remove her from the Olympic team, but Harding retained her place after threatening legal action. In the ladies' singles, Ukraine's Oksana Bayul won ahead of Kerrigan and Chen Liu, with Harding finishing 8th. In the men's singles, Russia's Alexei Urmanov won ahead of Canada's Elvis Stojo and France's Philippe Candeloro. Relaxation of the amateurism rules led to several former stars returning, such as ice dancing 1984 champions Great Britain's Jane Torville and Christopher Dean, who took a bronze behind Russians Oksana Grishik and Evgeny Platov, and Maya Yusova and Alexander Tsulin. In pair skating, the Russians also took a double, with Ekaterina Gordieva and Sergei Grinkov winning ahead of Natalia Mishkitanok and Artur Dmitriev. Freestyle skiing. Aerials was added as a discipline, after it had been a demonstration sport at the previous 2 games. Ski ballet, which had been a demonstration sport in 1992, was dropped. Canada dominated the men's events, with Jean-Luc Brassard winning the men's moguls ahead of Russian Sergei Shapaltsov. In the men's aerials, Switzerland's Andreas Shaparograph NBA Currencychler won ahead of Canada's Philippe Laroche and Lloyd Langlois, with Canadians also claiming the 4th and 6th places. In the women's disciplines, Norway was the only nation to take 2 medals. Steinlei's Hatterstad won the moguls ahead of the United States' Liz McIntyre. In the aerials, Lena Heliasova won, claiming Uzbekistan's only medal, ahead of Sweden's Marie Lindgren and Norway's Hilda Synnøve Lid. Ice hockey. 12 teams participated in the ice hockey tournament, divided into 2 groups. Each played as a single round robin, with the 4 best advancing to the single elimination medal tournament. Group A saw Finland win all 5 matches, while the host nation lost all theirs. Also Germany, the Czech Republic and Russia advanced from the group, all with 3 victories. Group B was won by Slovakia ahead of Canada, Sweden and the United States. The quarter-finals saw the Czech Republic, the United States, Germany and Slovakia eliminated. In the semi-finals, Canada beat Finland 5-3, while Sweden beat Russia 4-3. After the final period of the final, the match was a 2-2 tie, resulting in a shootout. After 6 shots, it was tied 2-2 until Sweden's Peter Forsberg beat Corey Hirsch, making the Swedes win after Paul Kara missed his shot. This led to Thomas Johnson, Ha-Yen Kan Lube and Mats Nakarency Slund becoming the first 3 members of the Triple Gold Club. Luge. Italy, Germany and Austria collected all the medals in the luge events. Germany's Georg Hackl won the men's singles, making him the first to defend an Olympic title in the event in 30 years. He finished ahead of Austria's Markus Prock and Italy's Armin Zar Ggler. In the doubles, the 2 Italian teams finished on top, with Kurt Brugger and Wilfried Huber winning ahead of Hansja Grafl and Norbert Huber. In the women's singles, Italy's Gerda Essensteiner won ahead of Germany's Susie Edman and Austria's Andrea Tiguerca. The own debuts was start Nida 3/4 Ad Lumigora from Bosnia and Herzegovina, Marco Federer from Liechtenstein, Sminan J. Payne from Bermuda, Paul Hicks from United Kingdom, Josef Sverak from Slovakia, Roger White from Australia. Nordic combined. While the events were the same, since the 1992 Games there was a rule change so that instead of jumping 3 times and taking the points for the best 2, the competitors only jumped twice. In the individual normal hill/15 km, Japan's Kenji Ojiwara had only lost a single event in the season's World Cup, but came in 6th on the hill, which was won by Norway's Fred Barnari Lundberg. He won the event after finishing 8th best in the skiing, ahead of Japan's Takanori Kono, Norway's Bjarne Engenvik and Ojiwara in 4th. In the team normal hill/3x10 km, Japan finished 1st, 3rd and 5th among the jumpers, giving them a 5:07-minute lead over Norway and finishing 4:49 minutes ahead. Switzerland took the bronze. Short track speed skating. Short track speed skating was dominated by South Korea, who won 4 of the 6 events. After the discipline's debut in 1992, the 1994 featured 2 new events, the men's 500 meters and the women's 1,000 meters. South Korea's Chi Ji-hoon won the men's 500 meters, while taking silver on the 1,000 meters behind countryman Kim Ki-hoon, who defended his 1,992 gold. The bronze was won by Canada's Mark Gagnon, who won the B final. In the A final, countryman Derek Campbell was obstructed by Great Britain's Nicky Gooch, who was disqualified. Campbell got up and started celebrating his bronze medal, when he discovered he had not completed the race. In the men's 5,000-meter relay, South Korea did not enter after a fall in the Seoul qualifying event, which took place in March 1993. Canada fell during the final, which saw Italy take a clear victory ahead of the United States, who were marginally ahead of Australia. The United States' Eric Flame became the first to take Olympic medals in both short track and long track speed skating, while Australia took its first Winter Olympic medal ever. 6 people took the individual medals in the women's events, with the United States' Kathy Turner defending her 1,992 gold on the 500 meters and South Korea's Chun-Li Kyung taking the gold in 1,000 meters. South Korea won the 3,000-meter relay with a team of 4 girls under 19. At 13, Kim Yoon-mi became the world's youngest Olympic gold medalist. Ski jumping. Norway won 3 of the 6 individual medals, with Norway's Espen Bridson winning the normal hill ahead of Norway's Lasse Ottesen and Germany's Dieter Thoma. In the large hill, Germany's Jens Wyaflog won ahead of Bridson and Austria's Andreas Goldberger. In the large hill team, the 1994 Games introduced new rules whereby all 4 jumps in each round counted, and not just the best 3. Neither Norway nor Finland, who between them had won all but one former Olympic team jump, managed to collect a medal. The event became a duel between Germany and Japan, with only a point separating them after the first round of jumps. Masahiko Harada had the last jump, and would secure a gold if he managed 105 meters but lost his cool, mistiming his leap and landed at 97.5 meters, giving the gold to the Germans. Speed skating equals. The long track speed skating events moved indoors, after they had been held outdoors in 1992. The 1994 Games introduced new qualification rules, limiting the number of participants in the men's 5,000 meters and women's 3,000 meters to 32, and only allowing the 16 best in each of these events to participate in the men's 10,000 meters and the women's 5,000 meters. Norway's Johan Olaf Koss took 3 golds, in the men's 1,500 meters, 5,000 meters and 10,000 meters. In the latter 2, he finished ahead of fellow countryman Kjell Strelid. The men's 500 meters was won by Russia's Alexander Golyub ahead of fellow countryman Sergei Klevchenya, while the men's 1,000 meters was won by American Dan Jansen. For women, American Bonnie Blair defended her 1,992 golds in 500 meters and 1,000 meters. Austria's Amis Huniadi won the 1,500 meters ahead of Russia's Svetlana Bazhainova and Germany's Gunda Niemann. However, Bazhainova took gold ahead of Nemeth Huniadi on the 3,000 meters, with Germany's Claudia Pechstein in third. Pechstein would go on to win the 5,000 meters ahead of Niemann. Closing ceremony . At the closing ceremonies, also held at Luge Rusbakken, all spectators were handed a flashlight with the inscription "Remember Sarajevo", the host of the 1984 Winter Olympics, which was at the heart of the Bosnian War. The first entrants on the stage were Livelman and Thor Heyerdahl, followed by the athletes' procession. After the flag had been transferred to Nagano Mayor Tashoka Tsvakada, speeches were held by Lillehammer Mayor Audun Tron, Heiberg and Summeranch. The latter used his speech to remind about Sarajevo's situation, before giving Heiberg IOC's gold medal. Artistic presentations followed with many of the themes from the opening ceremony. The 1998 Winter Games mascots, Snowlets, was also presented. Of the 2,200 people performing in the opening and closing ceremonies, only 50 were professionals. Paralympics . The 6 Winter Paralympics were run as an independent tournament, but organized by LOOC from 10 to March 19. Competitions were held in alpine skiing, ice sledge speed racing, biathlon and cross-country skiing. The Games also introduced ice sledge hockey. The Paralympics used the same venues as the Olympics, and were the second in Norway, after the 1980 Winter Paralympics in Geilo. 471 athletes from 31 countries participated, with Norway claiming the most gold medals ahead of Germany. The Paralympics featured their own logo, the amputee mascot Sonda, but retained the same overall design as the Olympics. Calendar: all dates are in Central European Time. Venues: the Games were spread out over 10 venues in 5 municipalities in 2 counties, Uppland and Hedmark. Lillehammer, with 25,000 inhabitants, and Hamar and Kjavik, both with 27,000 inhabitants, are all situated on the Lake Mjazar. Kjavik and Hamar are located 45 and 54 kilometers south of Lillehammer. Hunderfossen is located 15 kilometers north of Lillehammer, but lies within the municipality. Øya and Ringsbu, both with just under 5,000 inhabitants, are located 18 and 50 kilometers north of Lillehammer, in the Valley Gudbrandsdalen. Lillehammer had 4 venues, Hamar had 2 venues, while Hunderfossen, Kjavik, Øya and Ringsbu had 1 venue each. In Lillehammer, Luge Rusbakken features twin ski jumping hills. The large hill has a hill size of 138 and a critical point of 120, while the normal hill has a hill size of 100 and a critical point of 90. The hill has capacity for 35,000 spectators and hosted, in addition to the ski jumping events, the opening and closing ceremonies. Birkebeiner Ski Stadion featured cross-country skiing and biathlon, with the stadium itself having a capacity for 31,000 spectators during cross-country skiing and 13,500 during biathlon. In addition, spectators could watch from along the tracks. Carnthogen Freestyle Arena featured a capacity for 15,000 spectators. All the outdoor skiing arenas had free areas, which saw up to 25,000 extra spectators at the team jump and 75,000 extra spectators at the 50 km. Lillehammer Olympic bobsleigh and luge track is located at Hunderfossen. It had a capacity for 10,000 spectators and is the only bobsleigh and luge track in the Nordic countries. Ice hockey was played at two venues, in Harjenkunshall in Lillehammer and XVII Olympic Cavern Hall in XVII. Harjenkunshall has a capacity for 10,500 spectators, and also features the Norwegian Olympic Museum. The Cavern Hall is built as a man-made cave and had a capacity for 5,300 spectators. Skating events took place at two venues in Hamar. Vikingskipet had a capacity for 10,600 spectators and featured speed skating events, while figure skating and short-track speed skating were held at Hamar Olympic Amphitheatre. Alpine skiing was split between two ski resorts, Hejl in Øya and Kvitellen Ringbo. The former was used for the slalom and giant slalom, while the latter hosted downhill and Super-G. Spectators relied heavily on the use of buses and trains for transportation. Downtown Lillehammer and the axis between Lillehammer and Oslo were the most limiting areas, and the Norwegian State Railways ran up to 22 trains per day between Oslo and Lillehammer. Trains were also used northwards towards Trondheim, while other areas were served by bus. All the venues were located along railway lines, making use of spectators walking from the stations to the venues to limit road congestion, although special services were available for disabled people. Shuttle buses were established between venues and also connected to park and ride facilities. Politics and participating National Olympic Committees. A record 67 nations participated in the 1994 Winter Olympic Games. The Games were the first following the implementation of stricter qualifying standards, which prevented low-performing athletes from competing without meeting minimum standards. As a consequence, 11 warm-weather countries signed up to participate in the Games, but were ultimately absent as none of their athletes succeeded in qualifying. The number of African athletes fell from 19 in 1992 to 3 in 1994. These rules were, however, not applied to bobsled events, enabling the United States Virgin Islands, Monaco, Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica to compete in that sport. On October 25, 1993, the United Nations General Assembly urged its members to observe the Olympic truce from 7 days before to 7 days after the Olympic Games, making the Lillehammer Games the first to observe the truce. IOC appealed for a truce in the ongoing Bosnian War and the siege of Sarajevo, the city that had hosted the 1984 Winter Olympics. The unified team, which had represented participants from former Soviet Union states, was broken up, and the 9 former Soviet republics of Armenia, Belarus, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Russia, Ukraine and Uzbekistan participated as nations. The breakup of Czechoslovakia resulted in the Czech Republic and Slovakia participating for the first time. Bosnia and Herzegovina participated for the first time, after their independence from Yugoslavia. The composition of the Bosnia and Herzegovina 4-man bob team was 1 Croat, 2 Bosniaks and a Serb, mirroring the ethnic diversity of the country. 3 warm countries, American Samoa, Israel and Trinidad and Tobago, made their debuts. Medal count. Russia won the most golds, while Norway won the most medals overall. The following table presents the top 10 nations, sorted by gold medals, with the host nation highlighted. References. Bibliography, Hovardega NRD, on. Celius, Sten. Brun, Ivorole. An Olympic Fairy Tale. Lillehammer Municipality. Archived from the original on December 11, 2010. Retrieved December 11, 2010. Lillehammer Olympic Organizing Committee. 1994 Winter Olympics Report, Volume I. Archived from the original on December 2, 2010. Retrieved December 10, 2010. Lillehammer Olympic Organizing Committee. 1994 Winter Olympics Report, Volume 2. Archived from the original on December 2, 2010. Retrieved December 10, 2010. Lillehammer Olympic Organizing Committee. 1994 Winter Olympics Report, Volume 3. Archived from the original on December 2, 2010. Retrieved December 10, 2010. Lillehammer Olympic Organizing Committee. 1994 Winter Olympics Report, Volume 4. Archived from the original on December 2, 2010. Retrieved December 10, 2010. External links: the program of the 1994 Lillehammer Winter Olympics, Lillehammer 1994. Olympic.org. International Olympic Committee. Results and medalists. Olympic.org. International Olympic Committee. Olympic Review 1994 Euro official results.